In this video, we're going to break down the full abilities of Angela and also give you a guide on how you actually want to play this hero. We've had a bit of playtime now with Angela on the early access, and we've got a good feel for how you should actually play her inside Marvel Rivals. Now, of course, it's an early guide, and we will make an updated version of this once everyone gets their hands on the game and the new heroes in the game. Let's get straight into it. So we're going to start off with the grounded mode first, and this is the easiest to understand mode for this hero, so that's why we're starting off with this. So basically her primary attack is basically her slashes, and as you can see on the third slash it kind of dashes you towards the enemy. So as you can see, 1, 2, dash towards the enemy, 1, 2, dash towards the enemy, and the final strike does deal a little bit more damage. So just keep that in mind. You're able to kind of close the gap, so if you're kind of dealing this damage over here, you kind of close the gap between you and the enemy. Obviously, it's got a body block once you're attacking the enemy, but at this kind of point, man, it's actually a really good ability to use. Now, the other part to this is when you've built up your full rage meter. As you can see, the rage meter here is fully gold at this point. And how you build this up, I'll explain later on in the video, but once you've fully built this up, you're actually able to do a little bit more damage off of your first couple of strikes. It doesn't last the full length of time, but as you can see here, the first couple of strikes deal a little bit more damage, and you're able to get a slightly faster time to kill off the back of that. And the last and final thing you can do on the ground is the shield block, which is 350 HP, which is pretty solid in my opinion. You can basically toggle this on and off, but it does have a couple of seconds cooldown. Kind of similar to Captain America's shield raise. You do need to wait a little bit of time, and then obviously it does build back up on the left hand side as well. Now this also does build up your rage meter as well, so as you can see here, we're going to almost get to gold just by blocking this damage right here, and then we can use that to deal that extra damage once again. So entering her flying mode now, which you press L1 and it launches you straight up into the air, pretty high up as well, by the way. So I do want to mention that you can launch yourself up into the air, so it's quite good at evading damage. There is an ascend button, which allows you to kind of just fly vertically upwards. And then trying to descend, you kind of just need to fly down the way. There's no descend button, but I think they might add that for the actual release of the update, because there's no button to bind for a descend. Now, what you will notice is that you can just freely fly around. You don't need to press any kind of like thrusters or anything like that, kind of similar to Iron Man. You just kind of freely fly really quickly, by the way. So this is the fastest way of moving around with Angela. And basically you can see that that flying move builds up her charge, right? That builds up the damage charge meter, and it's now sitting at gold. So all you need to do is just fly around for a little bit of time, builds that up for you. The good thing is it never disappears, so it doesn't have like a cooldown or anything. So as you can see here, it just kind of stays at max charge for you until you decide to use it, right? And the way you do use this is by using your primary attack. So as you can see here, the primary attack now deals way more damage. So we'll kind of test the damage here on this Galactobot, which is full HP. As you can see, we're doing about 50-ish damage there, and that's not too bad. But if you fly around for a longer length of time, and we'll compare it on the other Galactobot. So as you can see here, and then we'll fly down and we'll melee this guy. As you can see, this has done like ridiculously more damage. It's almost double the amount of damage there, so almost 100 damage just by flying around and then hitting the enemy, right? Now, the other cool thing about this is that it doesn't disappear again, and if you do miss your shots, for example, and you're dealing the melee damage, it doesn't deplete your charge bar. So basically, it guarantees that you do get that damage hit, which I think is absolutely insane. Which is really, really cool with Angela. Now, the other thing you can also do whilst you're flying around, of course, is activate your shield as well to block incoming damage. And again, that will build your charge bar whilst you're taking damage in the air. Again, you've got that 2-second cooldown on it, but you can have it out, and you can also move around as well. You can kind of move around a little bit quicker, just blocking damage in the air. This is absolutely insane, by the way. You're just literally just tanking tons of air damage. So her other ability is actually her charge ability, which is the R1, and this only works when you're flying, by the way. And what this does is it actually carries enemies forward, and actually can carry multiple enemies as well. So we'll try and line this up as best as we can, and we press R1, and it carries multiple enemies forward. As you can see, it knocked them off the edge right here. And the carry distance on this ability is about 15 meters or 20. As you can see, it knocked the enemy forward 20 meters, which I think is pretty insane. So it's quite quite a good carry distance on that, even better than some of the other tanks in the game. Obviously, this is only going to displace people that can be displaced, so the thing, for example, won't be moved by this ability, but regardless of that, it's still pretty insane. So the last and final ability she has is the ability that slams down to get you grounded, and this is the only way you can actually get grounded, by the way. So essentially you press L1 and it slams her straight down. In this AoE blast, as you can see, it deals damage to enemies, but also if you deal damage to enemies, it grants you overshields as well. And if any of your teammates are within that radius, it also grants them overshields. Finally, her last ability is her ultimate, and that allows you to throw this spear which connects the enemies together. You jump on top of them and you can deal damage. It also kind of holds them in place for you, so it's almost like CC and damage, and grants you overshields as well. So it's pretty crazy in terms of an ultimate there. So it's a very powerful ultimate in my opinion. Getting on into the tips and combo section of this video, and there's a lot of combos for this hero and a lot of combo potential. First of all, if you're just trying to escape or you're just trying to close the distance whilst you're grounded and you don't want to have to use the fly ability, what you can just do is just hold your melee and just keep jumping and meleeing, because the melee gives you that slight dash forward and it kind of closes the distance a little bit quicker. So you just keep jumping and you just keep meleeing, and it's going to keep you moving a little bit quicker than normal, and that is just allowing you to move so much quicker whilst you're grounded than just basically running forward, right? It gives you that extra dash. So then we've got the flying state, which has tons of combos and tons of combo potential, but we'll get on into that in just a moment. So if you don't have any charge meter, let's say you've used it all, then how do we deal the maximum possible damage with Angela? Now, obviously doing the basic melee does deal a decent amount of damage, but as you can see, it's very slow. So what we want to do is add in a little bit extra damage in there by comboing this in with the animation cancel with our melee. And this works so much quicker, as you can see here. So as you can see, you're getting tons more damage in that downtime, and it's just a way better way of dealing damage to the enemy. The next combo is just making sure you have max charge before you use any of Angela's abilities, because it's going to just allow you to do way more damage. So you can either do it a couple of different ways. So you can either use the charge ability, make sure you've got obviously that gold charge meter, and you can dash into the enemy, carry them forward, and then end it off with a melee strike, as you can see here. Or you can do it the opposite way around, where you start with a melee strike. Now, I think the melee strike starting is way more effective, actually, because the enemy's already taken much of the damage already. So as you can see, and then you'll charge into them afterwards. Wasn't the best carry forward because the map's a bit crazy here at this section. Oh my god, I can't get out. And what you'll do is you'll slam down first and then use your melee strikes after, which finishes off the enemy pretty quick. But I actually think the spear deals way more damage than using it on the double axes. So that is just personal preference depending on which way you want to use it. But I recommend spearing with the max damage and then slamming down into the ground. So the last basic combo you can do is charge into the enemy, displace them, then deal your spear damage to them, and then slam on top of them as well to get the quick finish. And this is going to be insane for shredding through tanks, in my opinion, displacing them out of position, shredding into them, and just dealing so much damage. And the last thing you want to make sure you have your charge bar for is your ultimate as well. This is going to give you the max possible damage when using your ultimate. So as you can see, you throw that down, you jump on top of them, and then you start slashing. And you can basically rip through enemies super quick. As you can see, these are lower HP targets, but it means they struggle to move, and you're dealing the most amount of damage you possibly can with your axes to the enemy. Getting on into the gameplay portion now and how you actually want to play Angela and my general thoughts on the hero. I'll get my thoughts on the hero at the end actually, but I'll give you the tips on how you want to actually play this hero. So first of all, you want to make sure you always have the max charge built up. So fly around as much as you can, block as much damage as you can, and then have that max meter there so you can deal as much damage as possible, especially when you're in flight mode. And to be honest, 90% of the time you want to be in flight mode. You don't really want to be on the ground all that often. You're not that effective on the ground, to be honest. That is just the way Angela plays. It's unfortunate. You can help your team's front lines depending on the situation, and dealing that little bit extra brawl damage. You can brawl because she does have the shield, and the shield is like the most important part of her kit, by the way, because it's going to allow you to close that gap because you have no ranged attacks, and you don't really have any other abilities at all. Like even Hulk has a ranged attack. It's just crazy. Regardless, the shield's going to allow you to close that gap between you and the enemies. So if you're on the ground, it's going to allow you to close the gap to get into melee range. And if you're flying, it's extremely useful for closing the gap against other flyers, because every other flyer has a ranged attack to kill you with, whereas you need to get within melee range, like I said. So you want to make sure you build up your max charge on your attack, so that when you do get within that distance, you do land the strike, it's a deadly one, and it's going to at least scare them enough to know, oh crap, I might die at this point in time. That is if you're fighting flyers, obviously, like I said. So you want to kind of use the charge fly and have the shield up, fly into them, and then obviously use the attack, and then also use your melee a lot. By the way, the melee is so useful for Angela. Like, that animation cancel is crazy good. Then when it comes to her main playstyle and the way I would recommend playing Angela, is you want to fly around, build up your max charge, and then try and get behind the enemy team, right? You want to kind of get within kind of like a flanking aspect of her playstyle, and this is going to allow you to kidnap an enemy player. You can use her almost very similar to Wolverine or Thor, for example, where you can just almost completely steal an enemy player, or even two, by the way, and bring them to your team's backlines. And she's so effective at doing this, by the way. Especially having the shield to block the damage incoming, then just quickly using that charge. Now, what I do want to recommend when it comes to practicing how to use the kind of charge ability to steal enemies is that you want to use it when you're like super close range. Like if you're touching the enemy and you're dealing damage to them, then use the charge, because that way you'll always grab the enemy and be able to move them. If you try and like charge them from like maybe like 10 meters away, you kind of need to then start aiming it correctly, and then it's a bit more difficult to do. You can do it. Obviously, people will learn how to use this a bit better over time, but for right now, I think if you're, as long as you're like kind of like point blank range and you dash into the enemy, then you're going to be able to steal them. And then from there, it's pretty straightforward, very similar to the way Wolverine works. You kind of want to use your melee strikes, kill them. You don't even need to ground yourself with the ground ability. You can actually save that cooldown. Just kind of put them in your team's backline, let your team deal with it, man. It is super effective in terms of that kind of play style. Not super easy to achieve, but it is very effective when you do achieve it. Now, when it comes to the ground kind of melee attacks, you don't really want to be in the ground state all that often, to be honest. You can brawl, but she's not the best at brawling, so you can definitely help your team close the gap and deal a little bit of brawl damage when you are needed. But for the most part, you want to be in the air, man, taking out the flying DPS heroes or the Ultrons, whatever it may be. You just want to be in the air 90% of the time. That's where you're most effective, because most of her abilities just kind of combo well in the air. You do want to learn a couple of her combos. They're not too crazy. I did state them earlier in this video, but again, you can kind of mix and match them how you please. And then her ultimate, you kind of want to pop from the air. You don't ever really want to pop her ultimate at ground level, because you can see the fight from high up. Then you want to speed it down where there's multiple enemies, kind of almost like a Groot ultimate, but slightly better in my opinion. And then you want to kind of dive down and slam in and then start doing your damage and going crazy with that. Obviously, you want to team that up with some other DPS ultimates if you can, but for the most part, that is how you play Angela, in my opinion. If you enjoyed this video and you learned something new and you want to see more early access content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and thank you very much for watching.